Thanks for being with us for our Savvy Ladies Wednesday Wisdom webinar. I'm Maggie Montemuro, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator at Savvy Ladies. I'd like to remind everyone that if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the chat box. And if you're listening on your phone, please email your question to info@savvyladies.org. Today's presenter is Monica Shah, founder of Revenue Breakthrough, which is a company that helps women create breakthroughs in their business so they can live their ideal lifestyles. After working at L'Oréal Paris, Monica started her first coaching company, Ideal Balance. When Monica's clients asked her for business advice, she realized how passionate she was about helping women, and that is what she does with her company today. Monica received her MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern. And we're so happy you're joining us today, Monica, and let's get started.
Yay! I am thrilled to be here, and I'm so excited to actually talk to you about money. There is nothing that I like talking about more than helping people to get wealthier, to get rich, and also to talk about it from my perspective that I see out there, which is that so many women entrepreneurs are doing it backwards. They are struggling through how to do it, how to build wealth and build a business, how to do it consistently, and kind of the order in which we should do things. And I know that that is something that I personally really struggled with in my business. It is a piece where I really couldn't figure out what was next for me and how to do it. And I'm going to pause here for a moment. I'm going to move through these. Yes, excellent. These slides. And what it led me to was writing a book about my own experience around it and creating this presentation. So this presentation, Getting Rich, You're Doing It Backwards, How to Grow a Business That Pays for an Amazing Life, and it's based on my book, Getting Rich, You're Doing It Backwards, and it's really based on my experience of what it is to build a company. Why I started in corporate years ago. I started at L'Oréal Paris, and just before I went to L'Oréal Paris, I graduated from the Kellogg School of Management, and I had my MBA in entrepreneurship and in finance. And I was so excited to leap into L'Oréal and get moving. And it wasn't long while I was at L'Oréal before I felt that itch that many of you may recognize, that itch of wanting to do something different but not knowing how, and feeling like you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, but being a little bit fearful of what's next. And so at some point I decided that I needed to take the leap, and I did. And I left out of L'Oreal, where I was the marketing manager for their skincare line, and leapt into creating Revenue Breakthrough. More specifically, actually, I leapt into creating my first company, which was called Ideal Balance. Now, I thought that I was hot shit when I took that leap. I thought because I had the MBA, because I had the marketing experience, I knew exactly what I was doing. But it was a little bit like jumping into a pool of freezing cold water when you expected to jump into a pool of warm water. And within 12 months of being in business, I was $25,000 in debt. And I was terrified because I didn't know how to pay the debt off. And the debt itself didn't really bother me. It was just this fact of I wasn't making a dent in it. Like I didn't know what to do about it. And many entrepreneurs who come to me and business women and professionals have said to me the same thing. It's like, it's not that I worry so much about the debt because I know that that debt was spent for good reasons. It's that I'm not making a dent and paying it off. So I did everything I possibly could to work through paying that debt off. I walked dogs. I babysat cats, I did focus groups, I sold things on eBay. And one of the things I did the most of was rent my apartment out. And there's one particular week where I had rented my apartment out and I was out of my home for 8 days in a row. So I had slept on one person's couch for 2 days and another person's couch for 2 days and another person's couch for 4 days. And I was pretty tired and I grabbed all my stuff and packed it all up, got into the subway, got out of the subway, and I had 3 bags on my left shoulder, 3 bags on my right shoulder, a bag across my chest, and a roller bag that had all of my stuff in it because I had really sort of been moving around for most of that month. And I started walking up the subway stairs, and people are running by me and they're knocking the bags off, and the roller bag's getting knocked off. And I get to the top of the stairs and I looked to the left because I thought I was going to go get to the escalator, and the escalator wasn't working. And then I looked to the right because I thought I was going to get in the elevator because I thought, okay, I'll do that, even though it's sticky in New York City, and the elevator wasn't working. And I was at the BDFQ stop on 64th Street. And I will never forget as I looked over and I realized that there were 4 more flights of stairs for me to get to street level. And I put my stuff down and I could just feel the exhaustion coming up from the bottom of my feet all the way through to the top of my head. I could just feel it overwhelming me. And I sat down on the subway floor. Now, for those of you that know New York, and for those of you that don't know New York, you know you've hit rock bottom when you sit down on a subway floor because you know what goes on those subway floors. And as I sat there and I'm watching people walk by me and give me this quizzical look, I felt the tears start to emerge. And I just was so tired. I was tired of trying to figure out how I was going to make money in my business, where that next dollar was going to come from, how I was going to make ends meet. I was tired of trying to figure out where the clients were and how to make this business work. And I got really clear that if I didn't figure out this situation, if I didn't get it organized and start making money within the next 12 months, I was going to go back and get a job because I was tired of being a martyr for this business. And so I gave myself some time to work it out. And I know that many of you who are listening, hopefully you're not sitting on subway floors or carrying bags upstairs, but I know that you're carrying extra weight and extra baggage. And that extra baggage and that extra weight that you are carrying is that same fear. The fear around how are you going to pay off your credit cards? Or how will you ever get to that income goal that you have for your business? And the even bigger weight, the weight that etches away at everybody's confidence, is what am I doing wrong? Why can't I get this to work? What's wrong with me? And I think that is the most terrifying and debilitating question we ask ourselves is what is wrong with me? Because the more you ask that question, the more any confidence that you have now starts to get wear away little by little by little. So what I did over the next 12 months is I worked my tail off. I read every business book I could get. I hired business coaches. I hired marketing coaches. I went to my father, who was also a successful entrepreneur. I went to my business school friends and I asked for help. And what I figured out was that I had been doing everything backwards. And most entrepreneurs that I meet, most businesswomen, are doing everything backwards as well. See, what I was doing is I was focusing on moving, 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 trying to do everything possible to do my business. But I was doing the wrong activities in the wrong order at the wrong time. And so I was making half as much money as I could be and working twice as hard as I needed to be. So I did things like I started a marketing club where I thought, oh, it'll be great if people pay $97 a month and then I can get 1,000 members and then I can make $10,000 and it's just going to be totally awesome. Well, I did that. I spent $7,000 to get it started, and approximately 4 people signed up because I only had 250 people on my list. Today, if I were going to give you advice on when to start a club or a continuity program, it would not be until you have at least 10,000 people on your list. I also decided that I was going to write a book. Now, I have a book now, and it's pretty amazing. But at that point, I was sitting at home writing chapters of a book when I couldn't afford to buy groceries. What I should have been doing is sales conversations. And that's where we all get confused is we get a newsletter every single day that has solutions to our problems. It tells us to go do videos or tells us to rebrand or tells us to do a launch. And that is going to be the solution to our problems. But the thing that I didn't get, and that so many of you struggle with as well, is that there's a method to the madness. There's an order to this. And if you don't know the order, then you end up just running around trying this or trying that, spending a lot of money, but not really getting a return on your investment. And the order looks like this. This is what I learned is that you've got to build a relationship with money first. When you build a relationship with money, it starts to alleviate the fear and the struggle that you feel around money. So that when you go to look at your numbers or you go to ask for money in a marketing activity or at a sales conversation, you can actually get it. Step number two is that you have to know what phase of business you are in. What I do for my business now as a seven-figure business is going to be different from what somebody who's starting, who really needs to get to $100,000 in her business, or somebody who is needing to get to $300,000 or needs to ask for a raise, right? Everybody's in a different place. Focus on revenue generating activities. This means that you're actually focusing on activities that are going to help generate money for you and not just doing random activities that call your name. Track and analyze your numbers, look at your numbers. And of course, this goes back to what is your relationship with money because no amount of telling yourself that you have to track and analyze your numbers is going to help in that scenario. And finally, follow a plan. Understanding that a plan gives you the opportunity to have a life. The reason you should plan is not because you have to or you should or because some corporate mentor told you it's the way to success. Honestly, the reason you need a plan is because if you ever hope to have a vacation that's uninterrupted, or if you ever hope to have consistent family time that you don't feel guilty about, it has to be because you planned it, because you made it sacred ahead of time and you kept it sacred for the people that were important to you, for the things that were important to you. And once I got the order and started to implement this order, everything really shifted for me. It led us to double our revenue every single year and or triple it depending on the year, and it led us to become a seven-figure coaching company. And we've been a seven-figure coaching company since 2013 at this point. And one of my pride and joys is helping other business owners cross their thresholds now, whether it's six figures or seven figures for them. It's helping them to really grow their businesses and get to the next level. And it's really at this point, what we do is we help women, business owners, to go through these steps so that they know what to ask for, what to be focusing on, and how to build in the right order. So the first step is building a relationship with money. It's stepping into how do you relate to money right now? And what do you do with it in your world? How you relate to money tells you a lot. It'll give you some insight into why you spend money the way you do, what drives you to spend the money the way you do, and it also will give you insight into how you are relating to other people in their relationship with money. So I have a whole curriculum on relating to money. And so, given that we don't have time to do everything today, I picked a piece of it that I really love, which is my money types. There's four different money types, and you can be any of the four types, or you can be a combination of the types. So It's great for you as you're listening to figure out, well, what is my predominant type? Or to ask yourself, where did I start and where am I now? And then kind of listen for that. And then also be listening for what type is my boss, or what type are the people that work for me, or what type is my partner. And once you understand their types, you're also going to get a sense of where there might be some fights that have started and where the root of those fights might come from. For example, if you're married to a spender and you are a saver, or if you are a saver and you're married to a martyr, there could be some conflict there in how you spend your money. So the first type is an avoider. Now, most of us have some avoider in us, and you know that you're an avoider if every time you get your mail or your bills, you let it stack up and you avoid looking at your bills. Like you avoid checking them, and you avoid opening them. And in fact, the only time that you really organize your bills and look at them closely is sometimes when you get those calls from the Con Ed company and they kind of are like, we haven't gotten the bill yet. You have to pay the bill. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, shoot, I've got to get that worked out. So you know you're an avoider if you're in that situation. You also know you're an avoider if you don't know your numbers. Now, if you're a business owner on this call, you don't know things like the revenue that you're bringing in, the expenses that you're bringing in, the savings that you've accumulated, how much money you owe, how many marketing leads you talked to last week, what your conversion rate is on your sales conversations. You're just not looking at your numbers. Now, if you're a non-business owner on this call, if you work for somebody else, then for you, you don't know your numbers around your personal savings, your personal credit cards, or if you're responsible for something in a business, you've been in another company, you probably also don't know your numbers for them. You probably also have no idea how much money is in your bank accounts at this particular day. And because of that, you over worry and you overwork. You over worry because you're not sure how much you should, like how much money is in your accounts and how much you should be doing. So there's this always this kind of low grade worry that comes as a result of that. And you overwork because you always end up doing more work than you need to be doing in order to make up for this feeling like you just can't control it and you don't know exactly how much you're bringing in. The thing about being an avoider is that part of the reason you don't look at your numbers is because you have judgment around your numbers. You're judging yourself every time you look at them. And because of that judgment, you you stop looking at them, and you don't give yourself a chance to really grow and develop and make a change in your particular business or in your job or your lifestyle. The thing to remember as an avoider also is that there's a belief there that if you look at your numbers, you're going to somehow break the magic. And what I mean by that is that there's a magic that flows for you. You're a really good manifester. Like I've had avoiders say to me, Monica, I manifested a car, I manifested a job, I can even manifest a man. And I say that's great, but if you had clarity about what you were manifesting and exactly how it was working, I think that you would ultimately have a much better experience. The second type. The second type here is a saver. Now we're going to go back around and we're going to talk a little bit about each type and how you can change it as well, but we're just going to first identify which type you are. Now, if you are a saver, you often are more concerned about putting money in the bank than you are about spending it. In fact, on any given day, it makes you much happy to put money away and to see your bank account grow than it does to buy things for yourself, either experiences or things like, new stuff for your health. Often as a saver, the problem with being a saver is that you feel like you are putting so much pressure on yourself that you don't experience as much pleasure or ease in your business or in your life. And that's because when it comes to spending money, like to get help or support, you're not willing to do it. So, for example, if you are a saver, you would rather work 12 hours a day than spend some money on an assistant that might help you get to bed at 8 o'clock and not have to wake up at 6 o'clock to do the work. Also, if you're a saver from a personal perspective, maybe you would rather worry every day and feel guilty about, not feeding your family well or not eating well, because you'd rather do that and then slave in the kitchen instead of hiring somebody to come and cut up the vegetables and give you the support that you might need. Or if there's a doctor that's not on the insurance plan, you would just rather not go to that doctor, even though that doctor could uh, particularly help you with something and help solve some of your problems. So, one of the things that I've noticed with savers is that the business doesn't grow as quickly because savers are often afraid to take risks. The other piece to keep in mind as a saver is you often deny yourself pleasures because you're so busy trying to put that money away and trying to save it. The third type is a spender. So spenders are total hedonists. These are people that are a ton of fun to be around because they love to enjoy life and spend money on it. You know you're a spender if you've got a ton of credit card debt and you can't really pay it off. Often, as a spender, you're also a jack of all trades. You've done a lot of training programs, but you've never learned how to get a return on investment in the program. You rationalize your spending with things like I'm worth it or it was for learning, so I was allowed to buy it. I know for me, I have a particular spending habit around books. I buy books like they're going out of style. And so if you are a spender, part of what's happening too can be that you buy things for reasons other than you need them. So sometimes you'll buy for emotional reasons, like I'm lonely or I'm hungry or I'm insecure. I feel like I'm not good enough. So you spend to make yourself feel better. Sometimes you buy for reasons that like you've done something and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm disappointed because a client backed out. So let me go buy 3 programs on sales to make it better for myself. But then you don't even really follow through on all of them. Often spenders are personal growth junkies, but not necessarily interested in gaining mastery in any of the areas that they're learning or reading about. And the fourth type here is a martyr. You know, you're a martyr if you have trouble raising your prices or asking for what you are worth. So if you work for somebody else, you have trouble asking for a raise or asking for what you are worth in your job. If you are a person who is an entrepreneur, you have trouble raising your own prices and asking for that money in a sales conversation. Often, if you're a martyr, you believe that money isn't important, but helping people is. And therefore, you never have enough money. And what that can lead to is a bit of bitterness on the inside but you don't often show it. And that bitterness is due to the fact that you're not receiving. You're giving, giving, giving without an adequate amount of receiving. So I want everybody to take a moment, if you're listening, and I want you to identify what type you are. So are you an avoider? Are you a saver? Are you a spender? Are you a martyr? Or are you a combination? I know for me, for a long time, I was mostly an avoider, and I still have avoider tendencies. In fact, I really have to be very strict with myself about when I'm looking at all my numbers and keeping a date for me to look at my numbers, keeping a great management team, a bookkeeper, an accountant to help me with my numbers. Otherwise, it is something that I will avoid. And that's something to realize that whatever type you are, you can manage your type, but there's nothing positive. Like there's nothing bad or wrong about your type. It's just understanding who you are and then working with that type. So I'm just going to pause here for a moment, and I want you to take I want I want you to just take a moment and write down what type you are. Okay. So based on whatever you wrote down, you might be wondering, well, what do I do about my type? How do I make this better? So one of the ways to do this is let's go through and talk about different ways to look at money no matter what type you are. So if you are an avoider, one of the best things you could do is have a money date with yourself. A money date every week, a money date every month, and a money date every quarter. Every week, you want to sit down and just look at the basics of how your business is going. How much revenue did you bring in the last week? And if you work for somebody else, how much salary did you bring in the last week? How much money went out in terms of expenses? How much money is on your credit cards? How much money is in your bank accounts? If you owe anyone money, what you owe them. And of course, any other financial related projects that need to be done there. If you are a saver, oh, and what going back to the money dates, you also want to have a money date monthly to see how the entire month went. If you've got a bookkeeper, you want to look at the bookkeeping reports monthly and keep on top of where the money's going. Quarterly, you want to look at your plan and how much you've grown your business. If you work for somebody else, you want to look at your plan in terms of, are you meeting the goals that they set forth with you in your career, um, as well. If you are a saver, one of the best things that you could do as a saver is do what I call a categorical budget. And all that means is identify the categories that you think that you're spending money that you don't need to be spending that money. And once you've identified those categories, then give yourself a limit of what you need to be spending. So for me, one of the areas that I do spend a lot is books and personal development. So I actually have a limit on how much I can spend per month. And if I decide to go over that limit, I've made a rule that I need to have a discussion with somebody I trust about why and making sure that it's the wise decision to do that for that particular month. For my partner, he tends to go over on restaurants, and spending a little too much on eating out. And so he has a budget for how much he needs to spend on eating out, and he tracks it. Only the eating out. He doesn't track the whole budget because budget's a bad word for savers. I'm sorry, for spenders. This whole categorical budget is for spenders. I think I skipped saver in there. So I just want to make sure I'll go back and do saver in a moment here. Budget is a bad word for spenders. And so therefore, he tracks how much he's eating out from a restaurant to make sure he's tracking that in an Evernote book or and whatnot so that he's not overspending. Now, going back to a saver. Now, if you are a saver, one of the best things you can do for a saver is start to trust that there is going to be a flow of money coming in and out. And the way that you trust that is you want to open a savings account in your bank account. You want to label that account fund. And then you want to make a rule that every 30 days you put some amount of money into the fund account. And then you have to spend that money on you, not on your friends and family, not on taking your mom out to dinner, but on you. And what that's going to do is it's going to have you start to trust that there is a flow to money and that you can spend it. And then for those of you that are martyrs, one of your biggest things about being a martyr is that you don't have the vocabulary to ask for more money. So one of the things I really recommend as a martyr is that you write out a script, word for word, for how you ask for money, and use that script either with your boss if you're asking for more money, or use that script in a sales conversation if you're a business owner, in order to ask for money. And I love to just do the results of these things. Nisha Moonley was one of my clients. She was an alumni client years ago, and she had her first $50,000 month. And it was primarily because she realized her relationship with money and started to utilize it in her sales conversations. Step two here is knowing what phase of business you're in. So here's what's interesting is once you start to build your relationship with money, you've got to really start to do your marketing activities. Now, I might be the only person. This is from Monica Land, this phase of business. But this is the piece where I got most confused when I was starting my business because I didn't know what to focus on. Like, what was I building first? And you'll look out there and you'll see people that have like empires. They've got, you might look at me and say, well, Monica's got events, she's got books, she's got tons of people in programs, she's got products. Where do I start? What do I start to build first? And a lot of times people are starting backwards. The first place you have to start is building a baseline income. A baseline income is a consistent income that you have coming in every single month, no matter what. For those of you that have jobs, that's your baseline income. When you get up at 3 in the morning and you're worried about paying bills, it's coming from your job. For those of you that have businesses, you need something in your business that creates a consistent income week in and week out. For some of you right now who have businesses, your income from your business is inconsistent. So your actual baseline income that you are living off of to pay all your monthly bills comes from a job or a partner or a credit card or savings. And what I want you to start really doing is having that baseline income come from your company, your business. So one way to do that, here's some examples of where that can come from. It can come from programs, retainers, proposals, or services. And this is like saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to charge $500 a month in a program that people join for me if I'm doing a service. And my goal is to always have 10 clients so that I always have a baseline income of $5,000. You could also, if you have products, it's the same thing. If you're charging $1,000 for your products and you know you need $5,000 to live, then you know you need to sell 5 products a month, no matter what, or 100 products a month, no matter what. And the reason I say that products and events, like getting your baseline income for products and events, is more challenging is because you've got to get a new client every single month. Every time you sell a product, it's done, it's over, that person's gone. Or every time somebody comes to an event, they come once and then they leave. And then you've got to fill another event the next month. Whereas if you are a service business owner and you do a 6-month program and somebody pays you $500 a month, you've got that person for 6 months. So it becomes easier to create a flowing baseline income. So again, I know that you're all in different categories and have different things going on. Some of you have a salary in which you're deriving your baseline income from. Some of you don't, and you're looking for that. Some of you have a salary, but your salary isn't actually covering your full baseline needs. So you may need to get a second job or start a business on the side in order to cover your baseline needs. Once you're covering your baseline needs, then you want to move into top line income. And this is where you are creating products, group programs, books, events. These are one time purchases that are going to supplement your baseline income. Then you want to move into launch income. For those of you that want to be online businesses, this is where you're going to start selling more things online, like products and group programs and books and events online. And then for those of you that want to get to the even next level here, you want to do larger launches and events, and also do things that are higher priced programs and products and services as well. Every business has some version of baseline and top line income. Not every business will go into launch and empire income. But every business has a version of baseline and top line. So, for example, I just worked with a real estate company last week, and we realized that their baseline income, their consistent income that they can count on, comes from property management. But their top line income comes from sales of buildings, etc. So you always want to look at where's my steady income coming from and how do I create that? And also, if you've got your steady income created already, then you want to ask yourself, where's my top line income coming from? For some of you, your steady baseline income is your job. And you're ready to do like a product or a group program or a book or events as extra income on top of your baseline. Wherever you are, just know where you are because your focus is different depending on whether you're creating baseline or top line income. You also want to make sure that you're focusing on revenue generating activities. So it's really easy to get distracted. I love me a to do list. I have tons of to do lists that I try to check off every single day. And I'm telling you, folks, I am so addicted to my to do list that even when there's something that's not on my to do list, I will go over to my to do list. I will make that square just so I can cross it off. And that's how we all operate. Now, unfortunately, we don't, if you are an entrepreneur, you could be checking things off of your to do list 12 hours a day and still be broke. Because if you are not checking the right things off of your to do list, it doesn't matter how productive you are. And that's what can be so horrifying. Now, if you work for somebody else, it's the same concept. You might still get a paycheck for crossing things off of your to do list, but if you're not prioritizing what is important to the company and prioritizing what is going to move the company forward, chances are you're not going to get a raise or promotion, and you're not going to be seen as a rising star within your corporation. So the first step here is to set a revenue goal every 60 days. And this can be done whether you work for somebody else or whether you work for yourself. You want to start at the beginning of each month and set the goal, and then write that number down at the top of a revenue tracking sheet. Now, a revenue tracking sheet is very simply done. We've got an example of a revenue tracking sheet here that we give out at our events. But essentially, all you need to do, it's a very low tech thing, is get a piece of notebook paper, number that notebook paper 1 through 31 down the left side of the paper, and in the middle. And that stands for the days of the month. At the top of the sheet, you're going to put an inspirational phrase. And you're also going to put a 60-day money goal for yourself. Every single day that you bring money in any form, you're going to put it next to that day of that month. So if it's the 5th of the month and you bring $50 in, you put $50 next to the number 5. Now, this is going to vary depending on what you're doing. If you're an entrepreneur, your goal is going to be to start seeing opportunity everywhere so that you can start putting in dollars next to those days. Now, if you're on salary, you're probably only going to be marking on this sheet, once or twice a month, depending on when you get your paycheck. But what's interesting about this is it also has you start to create opportunities, whether you're on salary or whether you're working for yourself. It has you start to think about, how could I start to create more money making opportunities and more money? And what do I need to be doing every day to be doing that? So everyone take a moment, right? And I want you to think about just now, I want you to grab a pen and paper if you don't already have one in hand. And I want you to write down 3 things you could be selling right now to make more money, even in between paychecks or on a daily basis. Could you sell something on eBay? Could you sell something that you're creating, like a craft of some sort? Could you go and exchange some clothes at a used clothing store? Could you sell books that you have? Just take a moment and write down 3 ideas. Now, what's great about these tracking sheets is that they always keep you in the know for where you are now. And they always keep you looking at what's the next opportunity that you could be taking to generate money. I have a client who works with me, and she said, Monica, it's like you were sitting on my shoulder, and you had told me to do the tracking sheet and to look for revenue generating opportunities everywhere. And what she does is, so she's a therapist and she works with moms and daughters to help them communicate better. And she's got a daughter who's about 13, and she went to her daughter's school to pick her up. She went to the office to talk to the secretary to do some paperwork. And the secretary asked her how she was doing, and she said, great. And they were making some small talk. And then she said, well, what are you doing these days? And she said, at first, I was just going to kind of brush it off because I was late and I needed to go pick my daughter up. But then your voice entered my head, and it was like Monica was sitting on my shoulder. And Monica said, you've got to take the opportunity where it comes. So she said, well, what I do is I help young women, and I help them to figure out, to young women and their moms, to create better relationships with one another. And the secretary goes, oh my gosh, my daughter's getting married. She's 22. We are fighting like cats and dogs over every aspect of the ceremony, and I'm afraid we're going to lose our relationship. Can I hire you? She said, absolutely. And she signed and took her credit card on the spot. And that's the sort of thing that can happen when you're tracking your revenue and you're looking for opportunities everywhere. Now, the next section of this is that while you're tracking your revenue, you'll also have to change your behaviors and your actions on what you're actually focusing on during the day. So, for example, every day you want to determine what are the activities that are revenue generating for me? What are the activities that are going to take me closest to generating the most amount of money? And you want to make sure that you do them first. So, let me just start with what they do not include. They do not include making your website prettier, formatting your brochure, tweaking your headline, dealing with client logistics. They do not include changing a credit card, doing the laundry, cleaning the kitchen. They do not include Facebook time, going outside, talking, having conversations with people. They do include anything that's going to lead to a sale of a service or a product. Things like following up with clients, scheduling in initial sessions or sales conversations, scheduling workshops, doing partnerships and JV meetings. And for those of you that work for someone else, you will actually be loved and adored if you sat down with your boss and said, what would you consider the revenue generating tasks in this company? And how can I start to contribute to them to make sure that we get more of them done? So, for a lot of you, you might be wondering, well, this is a lot of information and I don't want to do this alone. It's this way. And whenever I teach this class, people always ask me, well, where can I get a revenue tracking template or an expense tracking template? Or, where can I get those money types written out so that I can see them and go over them with my team? And I want to invite you to come pick all of that up. One of the things that I know is that whenever I do this presentation, especially with a money types piece, people are furiously trying to write everything down so that they can take it with them. And I want to make it easy for you so you don't actually have to write everything down and that you can just get sent a copy of our ebook. We have an ebook called The Money Magnet Kit. And in the money magnet kit, there's a description of not only every money type, but also every behavioral change that needs to happen or action step that you can take with your particular money type. So you can not only read it for yourself, but you can print it out and go over it with your team members or with your family. I mean, it's a great thing to go over with your spouse. It's also a great thing to go over with your kids. I've got a lot of women in my programs who are also taking the revenue tracking templates, and their husband is doing revenue tracking, and they're doing revenue tracking, and they're doing it together, and they've made it a family game, and that makes it a lot more interesting and fun. So if you want to pick up your copy of the money types, you just want to go over to revenuebreakthrough.com/money magnet, revenuebreakthrough.com/money magnet, and you'll see that link here on the screen as well. And I also know that there's a couple things that happen with women and just generally. And one of them is isolation is the enemy of wealth. Being able to openly talk about money in business is so powerful. But in a lot of cases, we're all sitting at home alone trying to do everything by ourselves. And it's one of the reasons I think Savvy Ladies is such an amazing organization, is because they're providing a place for all of us to be able to come together, to learn from one another and to grow, and also to challenge one another and inspire one another to the next level. And I also know that money doesn't land in chaos. And in a lot of cases, we've got a lot of chaos in our lives and in our businesses. There's four major questions, in fact, that I get that relate to both of these topics, the isolation topic and the chaos topic. It's, what do I sell? How much do I charge? How do I build a business that honors myself and my family? And how do I stay on track to get what I want? Because I've gotten these questions over and over and over again, I've created an event to answer them. And because you're on this call with me, I'd like to invite you to be my guest at this event. It's called the Breakthrough Business Boot Camp, and it's October 1st through 3rd in Connecticut, in Stamford, Connecticut. Um, what I'd like to offer you today as an amazing listener and as part of the Savvy Ladies crew is a free ticket to the event. The all you have to do to get that free ticket is go to revenuebreakthrough.com/bootcamp client. Revenuebreakthrough.com/bootcamp client. And just so you know what we're doing over these 3 days is really the goal here is to help you get clear about your dreams and your goals and create a plan to make them happen, to know exactly what you're offering and what you're charging, to understand the actions you need to take to generate more money in your business. So, we're going to go even deeper into the revenue generating activities and the order in which you need to do them in because we'll have 3 full days to go over it, and we'll walk out with a crystal clear plan on how to make it happen. So, what I'm going to be giving you guys is a breakthrough planner, and you're going to fill in your plan step by step by step. You're going to fill in your belief plan, your boundaries plan, your money plan, your marketing plan, so that you can walk out with a clear plan of what you want to create for yourself for next year and what you want your life to look like. And this is especially important for those of you that have priorities like creative priorities or family priorities, or you're a caretaker of some sort to parents or friends, and you really need to create a business that's going to honor your lifestyle and still have you reach all of your income goals. So I invite you to be my guest on October 1st through 3rd. The event is limited in numbers. We have 60 spots left as of today. So I'm super excited about that. And again, it's revenuebreakthrough.com/bootcamp client. And when you get to that page, you'll see that you'll put down a $197 deposit that is totally refundable and will be returned to you when you show up at the event. Um, and we're so excited about it. Honestly, the Breakthrough Business Bootcamp, I put it together because I've gotten so many questions from entrepreneurs about where to get started and how to get clear and what order to do things in. And I'm not always able to answer them all in detail, on really short seminars. So I was super excited to create the opportunity to do it in a larger, longer event and to also bring together a community of women, because I know that what is most important to me, and I know that it's important to you if you're listening, is that we create a ripple effect. And that ripple effect is that we actually, and I know that you believe this if you're part of Savvy Ladies, is that we actually get smart about money. And when we get smart about money, we start accumulating more of it. When we start accumulating more of it, we start to make change. We make change for our community, we make change for our families, we make change for the world. In fact, the whole premise of micro lending in both Africa and India is based on the fact that when you give a woman money, she pays back the loan 98% of the time and uses that money to better her family and her community almost all of the time. And that's happening in doses in different ways all over the world. And so, what I'm excited to do is help create that ripple effect for you, and then have you go out and create that ripple effect for the young women in your life, for your team, for your community, for your friends, so that we as women can make a huge effect on the world. And I want to pause here and I want to ask if there's any questions on anything that I've covered on the 4 steps or anything that came up for you during the presentation.
Great, Monica. Thanks. We did have some questions that came in. This first one is about the money types. Can
Yes.
the money type change over the years?
Absolutely. So a lot of people ask that question because you may, like, for example, have been a spender and then you got yourself into a lot of debt. And then you paid that debt off, and now you're terrified to spend your money, and now you're a saver. And so, absolutely, what you should look at if you are more than one type like that, or if you've changed over the years, is what were the tendencies that made you a spender? And you want to make sure that you've addressed those tendencies. And then what are the tendencies that now make you a saver? And look and see if there's anything that's hurting you, right? So, in other words, when you were a spender, did you spend money because of you had a lot of insecurities, and are you still doing that? And if so, let's address that. And now that you're a saver, are you saving to your own detriment, where you're not experiencing pleasure and you're working all the time? Now, if that is happening, then you want to start to release some of that money and spend it so that you can start the flow moving in your life and experience more pleasure.
Okay, great. And another question is, what do I do if money is inconsistent for me? For example, it goes up and down a lot.
Okay, so if money is inconsistent for you, chances are that you live on the feast or famine roller coaster. And what that means is that there are some months where money is great and some months where it's not. And generally, what I say is consistent cash flow is equivalent to consistent marketing. So you have to look at what actions are you doing on a consistent basis. If you're just starting your business or if you're starting over in your business, it's going to take anywhere from 90 to 120 days to get the business moving. I'm sorry, 90 to 120 days of consistent activity to move the business forward. If you are at a point where you've been in business for a while but you're still inconsistent, chances are that you need to look back over the last 90 to 100 days and ask yourself, where was there a drop off in my consistent activity? A couple of the actions you should really be looking at in your business is consistently asking for money. So, consistently doing sales conversations where you are asking for money. If you don't know what a sales conversation is or how to do that, definitely join us at the Breakthrough Business Bootcamp because I'm going to be going into it there. But your goal should be that you are asking for money at least 3 times a week. At least 3 times a week consistently in order to generate more of it. Now, if you've got inconsistent income and you are on, or you can't seem to save money and you're on a salary, you're working for somebody else, the issue there could be that you need to look at. A lot of times people will say, well, my salary is $4,000, but I'm spending $6,000. So every month you're putting about $2,000 on a credit card. Then you need to ask yourself, how can I generate extra money? Do I need to start my own business? Do I need to do things on the side so that I'm generating an extra $2,000 a month to close the gap so that I'm not living on highs and lows in my income?
Okay, thanks. And do you have time for another question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, the next question is, I'm confused by all the ways to make money out there. Is there a way to simplify it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one that is very reasonable because every other day people are telling you you've got to do this to make money or that to make money or this to grow your business or that to grow your business. And one thing I like to tell people is that remember that not a lot has changed over the years. The traditional ways to make money are still in existence. They're just now supplemented by some technology. So, the best way, I believe, still the top 3 ways to generate income, number one is speaking, doing speaking events, either virtually or like virtually online, like this one, or doing them live in front of people. I think live ones are better, and that's primarily because you're getting to know people eye to eye. So whether you're selling products or services or some hybrid in between, speaking is a great way to generate money. The second way that I think is great, and this is kind of new these days, but I think it's so important and useful, is sponsorships. Putting out a table, getting a table in front of people who are in your target market is super important. Uh, Whether you put out a table at, I know Savvy Ladies has events, whether you put a table in front of a women's association event, whether you do a table at a yoga teacher's event or any sort of association that allows you to put a table out there, it can be super useful for your particular business model. The third way that I think is great to generate money is referral partners. So, referral partners may be people that are online, they may be people that are offline, but what a referral partner is somebody that serves your same target market. So, if we just had someone in here the other day who was an interior decorator and he was having trouble finding clients. And I said, well, what you really need to do is find out who's your referral circle that refers projects to you. And he said, oh, that's a brilliant idea. And so we figured out that his referral circle was contractors, developers, real estate agents, and people, supers, people that own fancy or run fancy buildings. And the more that he connected with this circle of referral partners, the better off he was going to be. So, again, speaking events, sponsorship, referral partners, you want to stick to the tried and true methods of generating income. And if you work for somebody else and in their business, and this is a great thing to take back, right, to your company, whatever it is, and ask yourselves, are you doing these activities? Are you working these big muscle groups? Instead of trying to, do lots of little muscle groups and lots of little disparate things, work the big levers first, and you will then generate enough money that you can then pay other people to work the smaller levers for you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Monica, for such a helpful presentation. And we want to thank everyone who joined us today. And thank you so much for your offer to the Savvy Ladies community. And we will include that in a follow-up email so everyone can get more information about it. And we just want to thank you again for your time today, Monica.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. If you have any questions or you need to contact Revenue Breakthrough in any way, this is our contact. We're at revenuebreakthrough.com or support at revenuebreakthrough.com. And our phone number is there too, 1-800-208-0913. Thank you so much, everyone. And please go make tons of money. I look forward to this world looking like a better place because we're okay.
Thanks, Monica.